I want to take this time to reflect on this year. A lot has happened this year. Immense amounts of horrible things and some wonderful, life-changing things. And I want to talk about them. My granddad, when he fell the first time and was rushed to the hospital, it was terrifying. And for the next 6 months, he was in and out of hospitals and nursing homes. He had some sort of memory loss because of lack of oxygen, and his mind was not there. So being 26 years old and sitting in a nursing home for 8 hours a day, every single day with your grandma, you know, and I'm helping feed my granddad, you know. This is like the father figure of my life. I've never had a father figure that was not my granddad, you know. He's one of my best friends. He's the most amazing man I know. And to see him completely non-functional, can't even feed himself, doesn't even know that he's eating, doesn't know who anybody is in the room, was just such a horrible experience. And it was scary. And this man who is now, my granddad is 86 years old. And mere months before the memory loss kicked in, he was still doing yard work for old women. He's a very physical man, and he's very independent. And to see him not be able to do anything was horrifying. And the place that he was at the first time did not take very good care of him, and he fell twice there, and the nurses there lied about it. And so we fought tooth and nail to take him home, and we had everything. We had a hospital bed. We had everything that he needed at home to take him home, and I was living with them to take care of him. I was going to anyway. And he was only home for 2 days. He stayed one night. He was there a day, stayed that night, and the next day we had to call 911, and they had to take him back to the hospital. And because he wouldn't wake up. His blood pressure dropped so low he wouldn't wake up. So they took him to the hospital, and it was at that time we had fired his previous doctor and got him a new doctor, and that's when they found out what was wrong. That's when they did the proper tests that his previous doctor just wouldn't even order. All the reason they were hopping him up with all of these medicines, all of these like narcotics, was because he had like a kidney infection or a bladder infection, one of those things, with the elderly that's really serious. And that the combination of that infection and all the medicine he was on just made him a vegetable, and it was horrible. And once they got the proper medicine in him and he started to feel better, he still couldn't go home. Because this is a man who, for the last, 2 months, had been laying in a bed doing nothing, because he couldn't. And so he couldn't go home from the hospital that time. He had to go to another nursing home for more rehabilitation. Literally within days of being at this new nursing home and having the correct medication and the correct diagnosis, he started to look up. And within days, he wanted to walk. He wanted to get up. But physically, he couldn't because he had been in bed for so long. And so he spent another couple of months at that rehabilitation center, and they finally let him go home, and he got to go home. And I stayed for about a week to make sure everything was okay, to get his medicines all correct and everything. And now he's home. He's with my grandma. They're well taken care of. They have helpers come all the time. And I'm so thankful that he's home and that he's healthy. My granddad going through all that was hard on all of us. But then recently, about a month ago, a very close friend of our family, she was my aunt's best friend. She was like an aunt to me. She was like a sister to my mother, died. And it's the first time in my life that somebody I know and somebody I care about has passed away. And I'm lucky to, have gone this far in life and not lost anybody. And we knew it was going to happen. She had cancer, and she suffered for 8 months before she passed, and she was in a lot of pain towards the end, and I'm happy she's not in pain anymore, but still I feel this huge, loss. And she was such a wonderful woman. On Christmas, she always came to our house for Christmas, and we had, my grandma's house. And so she was always there on Christmas. She always brought like weird presents for everybody, but it was like we appreciated it. And she was such a giving woman. She spent all of her free time at like the clothing bank and the food bank. But she knew it was going to happen, and she wrote a letter. She made all her own funeral arrangements. She didn't have a funeral. She didn't want one. But she made all of her arrangements. She wrote her own obituary. She knew it was happening, and she wanted to, take care of things. She didn't want anybody to do it for her. She didn't want to burden anybody with it. And the preacher that was at the memorial was actually one of their bikers that came to stay at the motel. And so she knew she wanted him to be there, to be the person who spoke at her memorial, and she wrote him a letter to read to everybody there, saying, she loved us all, and we're all her family and everything, and it's a hard thing to lose somebody, and I never understood how hard it was until now. And I thank God that she's not hurting anymore, she's not in pain. But at the same time, I wish it never happened to her, because there isn't another person I know that was as giving and wonderful a person than she was. For as much bad things that I've gone through this year with my family, I've had such wonderful things happen too. I mean, and to begin that list of great things is moving into this house. We've lived in an apartment since I was 17. So, nearly 10, we lived in apartments for nearly 10 years, and it's not a fun experience. If you live in an apartment, you know that it's just not home. I've never felt like it was home, We've lived in a lot of apartments. We moved around a lot. And getting to go out and look at all these homes and finding the one that really feels like it's your house, is incredible. And the thing that tops the list as far as wonderful things to happen this year was me finding my sister. Growing up, my mom told me little bits about my dad every now and then, but only when I asked. And she didn't tell me everything I found out, but so for years now, I've been trying to find my family, and I've always wanted to find my sister first. It seemed like a good plan to me to find my sister first, and by extension, I would find my dad. I knew my sister's names. My mom told me their names a long time ago, and for the past 6 or 7 years, I've sent out Facebook messages to every woman on Facebook that had that name. Facebook and MySpace, back when MySpace was popular. And it was a message like, 'cause I knew where my mom and dad met, where they lived at the time. And so I sent out messages along the lines of, did you live here, 25 years ago, or, however many years ago it was at the time. And, do you know this man? And I would give my dad's name. And I would constantly get back messages, no, I'm sorry, I'm not who you're looking for, things like that. And then I figured I was going to quit. I wasn't going to try anymore. What's the point, And then one day I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to try one more time. This will be the last time I do it. I'm not going to try again after this. What's the point? And so I sent out, and I would send hundreds of these at a time. I mean, there is a lot of people on the internet. And I got a message back this time from someone who said, I think I know who you're talking about. I think I'm the person you're talking about, type of thing. And I was floored. I was like, there's no way that I legitimately found my family on Facebook, of all places on the internet. And I tried all of the other sites too that say they can help you find people, and none of them worked. None of them give you anything. I almost found them last summer, but it fell through. But anyway, and for a couple of weeks, I would send a message to her now and then, because I didn't want, she told me right away in her first message to me, give me a call, we'll talk. And I was too afraid to call her, because, I mean, to me, I was like, holy mother of shit, did I really find my sister? It just blew my mind that I could possibly have done this. And I did find her. It turns out, yes. Okay. So after a few messages, and she kept telling me, give me a call. I want to talk to you. I can tell you have something you want to talk about. And I wanted to make sure through Facebook messages, because I was too chicken shit to call her, that she really was who I was looking for. And when I really thought she was, I texted her because, again, I'm a big wimp. And I said, if you're who I think you are, I think that I'm your sister. And then she called me right away after that text message. And she asked me, what do you mean? And I told her the whole story. My mom used to live here, and, her dad and my mom got together, and I was created and born and all of that. And it was nothing to her. Like, not in a bad way, no. I mean, like, immediately, she just accepted me right away. She remembered my mom. She remembered my brothers. And it was amazing. It was so much easier because she knew who I was talking about. She knew my mom and my brothers, that she had no question about the fact that I was her sister. She did not question it one bit at all. So we talked a lot, and I told her how scared I was to actually talk to her and call her and stuff. And she told me, she could tell in my messages that I was really searching for something, and that I was scared, and there was something I really needed to say. And so she was happy to talk to me, and she's happy to know me. I can't wait to get to know her more. We don't talk that often. She's really busy now that she's got the 3 kids, and then I'm really busy just with everyday life. So we don't talk that often. But when we do, it's always nice. And my mom's talked to her. My mom remembers her. And she told my dad right away about me. And he was in shock. My mom says that she told him that she was pregnant, and he says he doesn't remember that. And I don't want to get into all that kind of thing, because that's not that important to me. If my dad wants to get to know me, I would love it. I really would like my dad to want to get to know me. But if he doesn't want anything to do with me, or doesn't want to get to know me, I'm not okay with that. It's a disappointment, but I can deal with it. Because I've had, 26 now, I've had 27 years or whatever to get used to the idea of getting to know my dad. And I knew he existed, obviously. Nobody doesn't have a dad. But he's had less than a year now to be like, oh, crap. Listen to that. I have another daughter. Right now, I have a great and wonderful sister that I could not wish. I couldn't have wished for a better person. And, I know it's a very weird feeling. It probably doesn't make sense to people who know both of their parents, even in, like, divorced families or anything like that. But it's a very strange feeling to know that this is my mom, and I've known my mom my whole life, and then this is my dad, and this is what my dad looks like, and this is where my dad lives, and, I have a stepmom, and I have a stepbrother, and I have these other parts I never had before. It's very strange, and I look like my dad, and I look like my mom, and I've never seen that before. It's very weird to have these things happen, but it's wonderful all at the same time. I love it all. This year has been an extreme roller coaster, ups and downs to the very extreme ends, but at the end of the year, I'm happy about the things that were so amazing. This year has been the most life-changing year that I've ever had. I will never forget this year, and I want you to reflect on your year. I want you to look back at the great things and at the sad things, and find the things that made you change as a person. And have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.